Hey, it's Greg Sestero from The Room, and you are listening to Cinema Psycho Show.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine. Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
Your fellow ghouls.
Ghouls.
Or should I say oh, no, I'm sorry. We
No.
can't say that
No,
word.
can't say it.
Can't say the Z word.
Can't
say
say
it.
the Z word. That's a bad word. Can't use that word.
So, guys, is this the beginning of our spooktacular season?
Spooky season! Yay! I love spooky season. I love me a good spooky season.
Yeah, spooky season. Mm-hmm. We got some plans for spooky season.
We're very excited.
Not going to reveal all of it, but you're going to have some fun.
Our fourth psycho is very excited. Archer Williscroft, our dog. Yeah. He's very excited. He like perked up when you guys started talking about Halloween.
Spooky season?
Hey, he's a black dog, you know?
We washed
not
the
just for black
candy
cats.
corn from last year. We lit some jack-off-lanterns, you know?
Jack-off-lanterns.
Did you say we washed the candy corn from last year?
Yeah.
Nasty. You are nasty.
That's pretty gross. It's pretty gross.
Agreed.
So we're on episode 148, and as part of our spooktacular season, we are analyzing Night of the Living Dead. Now, I'd say, Brian, well, you already talked about that. You did a whole live show, and...
Is that what our listeners sound like to you?
Our elderly women.
They might. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
And Brian said, fuck you, lady.
Yeah, but we're talking specifically about the 1990 remake. Directed by Tom Savini.
Night of the Savini Dead, yeah.
Night of the Savini
Yes,
Dead.
yes.
I love it.
Night of the... We're trying to recoup our money from lack of copyright protection. That's what this movie also is.
They Home Alone tuned it.
Yeah, they did. They seriously did.
They copy and paste the original script, shoot it again, put it in color. Yeah,
that's right.
It's fine.
So we thought we would analyze this because we really don't care for remakes and reboots, and this is one of those rare ones where it is part of our Is It Really That Awful, right?
Yep.
Right,
this is part of our subgenre of the show, Really That Awful, where we talk about something that is not critically loved, and we give it a second look, and we decide, as the experts that we are,
we give
really
that shit
awful,
a chance,
or if it
yo.
deserves a second shot.
Agreed.
So this one is it's conflicting. I think it's a conflicting film. Do you think it's a conflicting film?
Here's just as a little background. I actually saw this one first.
Really?
Yeah, I was like 10 years old.
I didn't know that.
And one of the video rental stores in my hometown, Knight's Video Rental.
Going back to Knight's Video.
Yeah, they had it. There was a very small building, and so they usually had the films by like actor or director. So like if you were into John Travolta and you wanted to see something similar to his new Fred Durst movie, it would be all the Travolta movies. But they also had subjects for genre. So and it was like they were really thin, clear look through things, and you could just flip through them because they didn't have a whole lot of space. And I heard, Night of the Living Dead is a classic and it's supposed to be really good. I didn't know it was made in the 60s, didn't know it was black and white, didn't know anything. So I went there, and the first Night of the Living Dead that popped up was the 1991. So I'm like, here it is. And so I saw that one first.
And you thought
I thought this was the Night of the Living Dead. So I have a little soft spot in my heart for this one because I actually saw it before the true 68 classic.
Too funny.
Yeah. I mean, I also saw this one before because, growing up in the 90s, you had HBO, and I think this was on HBO at one time, either HBO or Showtime, or one of those things. And I remember seeing it on there. And then, of course, it was, subsequently you would show it on like USA, Monster Vision,
right.
Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah, like Joe Bob Briggs would talk about it. So like
friend of the show, Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah. Is he a friend of the show?
Well, yeah, he's willing to do an interview. It just hasn't worked out yet, timeline wise.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
We're in talks.
That's news.
We're in talks.
I didn't know that.
John's got his dirty little fingers and everything.
See, John, I mentioned this on when we were talking, on Facebook Messenger. His nickname should be Johnny Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because John literally is the expert at these interviews. and getting
He's
these
nailing it.
celebrities. He really is nailing it.
He really is.
But anyway, like that's how I kind of was introduced to it. I saw this again before I saw the original, because like later down the line, especially when I moved to Pittsburgh, it was like, well, you kind of have to watch this movie because it is the zombie capital of the world, and there is a lot of history with it. So, I'm conflicted on it because I see faults and I see positives to it. What about you, Lane? How did you experience this movie?
I saw it for the first time as an adult.
Okay.
And John and I watched it together. There was a little bit of beer involved.
But not.
Yeah.
We were still okay by the
We
end.
were
of it.
fine.
It's
I
not
mean,
like
it was
you saw
fine.
it so looped out of your mind. You
No,
don't remember.
no. I just meant like we were like, we really did it up right.
Yeah.
Like had like a festive time because it was fun. It was fun to watch together.
Yeah. Came out October 19th, 1990. It had a $4.2 million budget. Only made $5.8 million profit. So if you take advertising into effect, it's probably lost money.
Maybe. Oh,
So much for keep it in.
Yeah, I'll keep
Sorry.
it in.
Keep it in. Yeah.
or you could say bless you too.
Bless you. We're keeping
rude,
it in.
Rude a-holes. Okay, so it didn't make any money probably.
Yeah, so like Romero and all them that were trying to like recoup their costs, they probably lost money.
Well,
on
wasn't
this
this
venture.
remade because of the copyright concerns
Yes.
over the first film?
Yes. So here's the deal behind that. The original producers, so Russ Streiner, John Russo, George Romero, for whatever reason, I don't know the specifics of why they didn't copyright this. My only guess is just because of the fact that prior to, I think it was the 70s.
Well, I think it was a slip up in copyright. You have to do something specific.
Correct.
They didn't know, and it was like, oops.
The thing I believe you had to do was you had to put the actual like copyright symbol or something like that.
Right. Something so ridiculously small, but it can screw everything up.
And nowadays that loophole doesn't exist. Like nowadays, whether you put a symbol on there or not, it's copyrighted. And this is one of those famous films that suffered. Like they didn't make any money off of Night of the Living Dead. Like that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that despite its success, despite blowing up in theaters, Romero never made any money off of it.
Yeah, because they sued the one company,
Yes.
didn't they? But
Yes, they
then
did.
it never the company went out of business before they could recoup any of the funds, right?
So, you have a movie like that, and I think it always kind of stuck in the filmmaker's craw that they never really got any money off of it. So years later, after, the Dead movies became, they did make money off of them, like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Well, they probably thought too, like, sorry to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
they probably thought that the dog's creating commotion here.
Yeah.
That this movie, well, it'll be like our first movie and it'll play a couple of places, and then our next one will be even better. They didn't know they were creating a fucking phenomenon.
No, they didn't.
60 some years later, it's
They did
still
not.
so huge.
No, they did not. So, ultimately when it came down to it, they viewed making a remake of the film kind of as a way that they could make some money off of the name Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of the impetus of this kind of came from. And I think it was a good idea, except for the fact that Night of the Living Dead has a massive fan base, and some people might view it as kind of betraying that.
Sacrilege,
even. Like, it almost kind of like, you're going to remake Citizen Kane.
I did with Dawn of the Dead, the horrible Zack Snyder movie. And yeah, I said horrible. And I'll be, is this better than the original? Fuck you.
No, it's
Fuck
not
you.
better than the original. I don't think it's a bad movie. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, we can disagree with this. Yeah. I see where that movie has some positives to it. But is it better than the original? No. The original is the original for a reason. Yeah. You can't, discount the Goblin score and, all the other things that make that movie a great film. But yeah, I mean, it's the original, not Dawn of the Dead. I mean, come on.
Right.
And we can argue all day long which is better, Night or Dawn, and we can all agree that Day is the worst.
True. But
of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about Diary of the Dead and all that shit.
Those don't
Romero did
exist.
later.
Well, what's interesting about this too is that the original creative team was on this project because of the whole deal with wanting to kind of recoup some of the funds from the film and everything. So George Romero was still on this project, and then he paired again with both Russo and Striner, right?
Russo, Striner. He brought in Tom Savini, who,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand that Tom Savini didn't do the effects for the original Man of the Dead.
He couldn't, right? He wasn't
He
around.
was in Vietnam.
Yep.
Like,
And that's a large part of why his stuff is so realistic.
yeah.
Because he took a lot of things from like anatomy journals
He was a
and like
combat
actual
photographer.
and actual dead bodies.
Yeah.
Well, some of the effects in this movie were based on like concentration camp
Yes.
shots.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, there's an efficacy that maybe was crossed with that, but it's not like they put them on a special features. You only when you research that, you only find that out.
Right.
But,
Makeup department, actually, that I'm looking at this right now on IMDb. Savini didn't do the makeup on this.
No,
he had
they
to direct.
persuaded
I mean,
him to
that would
direct.
be-
Yeah.
yeah, which is odd because he was the first time director. I'm surprised. I mean, I guess by that point Savini was known well enough for like Friday the 13th and Dawn of the Dead that he was enough name recognition that people maybe would want to see it.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get Romero to direct it, let's get Tom Savini. People know who he
Well,
is.
I don't think
he
it was
put something through Kevin Bacon's neck.
I don't think it
Right.
was a matter of Romero didn't want to direct. I think it was just a matter of he viewed it as, I've already said this story, I'll be involved in it, and he was involved in this film. But I don't think he needed to have to redirect. I think he thought, well, you know what? Tom's worked on me in a bunch of movies. Why not give him a shot?
And on that note, since this movie is so similar to the original, let's jump into Really That Awful. And with the first segment, as I love to call, Okay, We Get It.
Oh, excellent.
And here's a direct quote. Makeup wizard Tom Savini's color remake of George A. Romero's 1968 classic follows the original almost shot for shot, so quality comparisons are somewhat pointless. The film was clearly made for younger viewers who refuse to watch a black and white film, no matter how good they may be. Thoughts?
I mean, so I'm gonna like really put myself out there, guys.
Uh-oh.
I'm not crazy about films in black and white. It's
You just lost your film snob card.
listen, it's
I'm
not
taking your film twat card right now.
fine.
Maybe twat, but not snob. Did she lost snob, but twat? I don't know.
I don't know. I still have a twat. I'm a lady. So
You lost no, snob.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. You
Yeah,
guys are
twat.
welcome.
Yeah.
So, and it's only because I respond to color. It's something that's just like a part of my aesthetic, and which might make people laugh because all I wear is fucking black. But, but with old movies and stuff, it's not that I dislike them or oh I don't want to watch that. Like I'll still watch them, but I'm such a person like to see things in color that if there is an option to see a movie in black and white or color, I'm going to take color every time because I don't know, like with the art direction, like I want to know what colors they chose. I want to
get
know
that.
what the set
I
is,
understand.
like
I understand.
there's a whole facet to cinematography in color.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, that's so funny because the movie The Mist, based on the Stephen King short story, that was shot in color because the studio demanded it. And when you buy the Blu-ray, if you're into it that much, there is an option to put the movie in a black and white because they picked the cinematography specifically for black and white. So if you want to see how Frank Darabont intended the movie, you can see it in
Right.
black and white. You
It's
have the option to watch
the
it
same
that
thing
way.
with Mad Max Fury Road. That I know that when that movie came out, George Miller said that he wanted it to be in black and white. And I think there
wow.
is a black and white version if you buy the film.
Oh man, I don't know. That film is so beautifully like
I
color graded.
love
See
the
what I'm
color in
saying?
that.
Maybe color's good,
But
Yeah.
I get why, if the film, I look at it this way: the filmmaker wanted the movie to be black and white, but because of like the logistics of distribution, you can't. I want to see it in black and white, but I mean, I'll go with whatever the filmmaker intended.
Well,
so,
here's a second quote from
Yeah.
Brian's best friend Roger Ebert.
motherfucker.
The remake is so close to the original that there's no reason to see both unless you want to prove to yourself that black and white photography is indeed more effective than color for this material. Lane, that just went against. He just literally said the opposite of what you said.
Here's the thing. First of all, Roger Ebert, burn in hell. I know you are. I mean, that's all right. But there is no one is better than the other. One is different than the other.
and I'm not
Well, I
saying
think he's saying for that genre because like it's understated when it's in black and white and it leads more to the theater of the mind.
Okay, but first of all, this is coming from an asshole who literally criticized every horror movie coming out of the 80s, so he really has no leg to stand on.
He was not a fan of those movies.
No, he was not. He was not. He called them garbage. But the point is that, there are problems with this movie, absolutely. And you could argue, does this movie really even have to exist? And I think there's some merit to that. But to go on the basis of, well, one's in color, one's in black and white, you should always see the black and white one because of some purist bullshit. I'm sorry. That's completely asinine. Some people like to watch movies that are in color, and some people like to watch movies that are in black and white. It doesn't matter. Not one is better than the other. They're both different.
Clerks and Clerks 2 are very, very similar movies.
Yes,
and one's in black and white, one's in color.
That's true.
And I think the black and white one is a better movie. The second one might be funnier, but I'm also have very sophomore humor that Kevin Smith does.
And here's the important thing too. Let's also understand this: Romero made Night of the Living Dead in black and white not because he wanted some artistic choice. It's because black and white film stock is less expensive than color film stock.
Plus, you don't have to have matching lights that way.
Yes. Okay, so don't give me that
color
bullshit.
temperature-wise.
Don't give me that bullshit of, there's some artistic purist in being black and white. No, it's called the filmmaker doesn't want to spend twice as much money on film stock than he could if he was making it in black and white. That's the reason why.
Right.
That's it. It's money. It's a money thing.
Well, and speaking of Clerks, that's the only reason that Kevin Smith made Clerks in black and white, because he said we were using different color temperature lights and it looked like garbage, so we just made it black and white.
Yes,
to cover up the fact that we couldn't color correct the fucking thing.
So Roger Ebert's excuses, it's some critic bullshit. Burn in hell. So anyway, I mean there's problems with it, absolutely. And it is a shot-for-shot remake, in my opinion, with some slight differences.
There are some, and we'll get to those soon, but the overacting in the movie is very intense, especially Tom Towles.
Oh, man, he
brings it.
He really does bring it. I mean, that's kind of what he's known for, but Jesus Christ. Oh, it's bad.
And I would say the loss of the impact and importance of the original. I mean, now, granted, a lot has been thrown on to Night of the Living Dead that maybe wasn't even their intention while making it.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
Like, we've all spoken with the original filmmakers. We've talked to Russ Streiner. I mean, not on this show, we just...
as people.
As people, because of the fact we live in Pittsburgh. So, we've talked to the original filmmakers, and they've all said, like, we didn't intend for any of the pedagogy stuff that people have
some
got
of the
at.
things they did, like, after the fact,
Well, after the fact, but I don't think that it was a conscious effort.
Right.
Like, they didn't say, oh, yes, we are going to tell a story about a black hero in 1968 fighting off zombies.
Well, Ben
no one thought about that.
Yeah, Ben, the main character, was an undereducated white male truck driver.
Yes.
And then they cast, the actor they did because he was the best person to audition, and they rewrote the character because he was, I don't hate to use this as white term, so well-spoken. I mean, as a human being, not as a black man.
Yeah.
And they rewrote the character to fit it better. And then, the end of Night of the Living Dead, if you haven't seen the 1968 one, sorry, but Ben gets shot, it seems like he's the only survivor, but, a black man is killed by white police officers, and they have images of lynching at the end. So they knew what they did after they cast him to rewrite it and to make it,
I mean, they ultimately, they said that they didn't go in thinking that.
Right. It just kind of developed over time.
And I think there is something to be said for the environment being that way. I mean, you imagine that this movie was probably made in what, 1967?
Yeah, I think. Well,
or 66, 67?
No, they literally had the finished print in their truck the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated, which was 68. So they finished it in 68 and it premiered in 68.
So it was probably made in the what?
Between
spring,
67 to 68.
Summer and fall of 67.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So ultimately, they're not numb to the news.
Right.
I mean, they're not immune to that. And I think that's a valid thing to say. Maybe they didn't go out intentionally trying to put this sort of messaging in there, but it just kind of developed because that's the environment it was in.
And that can happen during shooting and post-production.
Absolutely.
As well,
and I don't think it was lost on them what having an African-American hero in a horror movie, would be like in 1968.
And Romero even had said, like, what if we don't mention it? What if none of the characters mention that he's black? What if, and we don't make a big deal out of it? He's just, oh my God, a human being?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's something to be said for the messaging. But I mean, when you talk to, Russ Streiner or John Russo, they'll tell you, we intended to just make the best horror movie that we could with the resources that we had. They had cut their chops on, what was called commercial, or I think it was industrial films. I think that's what they're called.
Yeah, they did an Iron
films.
City beer commercial. They did all kinds of ads around
So,
the city, or industrial movies.
So ultimately, like, this was their passion project. And as I said, they wanted to just make a monster movie. That was it.
Well, as Russ Streiner said to us, it's like, well, we thought about making a Western, but we couldn't afford horses.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth of it. Well, I can't make a Western. I don't have horses. So, what do we have? Well, we got a graveyard, and let's make a monster movie.
Yeah, we can put some makeup on some folks.
Yeah. So, that's the original. With this one, though, one of the big key things to take from it is that they really upped their game when it came to makeup and effects. For 1990.
And I think they did try to keep it restrained still, just to kind of, follow the spirit of the original. I remember reading that they didn't want it to be too gory because it wouldn't be in line with what the original vision was.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of what it has to say, a lot of people said the big difference between the two, if you're looking for something deeper, is the difference between racial versus gender politics.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Because nobody listens to her.
And we haven't talked about this yet, but seeing the woman in a more prominent, not ridiculous role is actually very satisfying for me. And I think that this, I wouldn't say I like the 1990 version better necessarily. They're different, but it is nice to see like a woman in the film that hasn't gone catatonic and isn't like the world's biggest pain in the ass, Like,
You
I'm
don't
sorry,
like whiny Barbara.
I'm sorry, Barbara is useless, and like I hate seeing that.
Barbara is pretty terrible in
That
this.
is-
I mean,
That is a
credit to
big problem
Judith
in
O'Day,
68.
but Jesus Christ.
She did what she told. Yeah,
She did what
her
she was
performance
told.
is fine. That's exactly what she was told to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm sorry. I have nothing against Judith O'Day, but Jesus Christ, they really gave her nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. She just gets catatonic. She's not useful. She doesn't do anything. There aren't strong women characters in the first one at all, unless you count, the child becoming a zombie.
Yeah. She killed that bitch. But no, that was very much movies of their time, and I think they pick which thing to go against and say, oh, we're going to cast a black man. We're not also going to put a strong woman in the movie because we actually want people to buy this.
Right.
And that was typical at that
Unfortunately,
time.
yeah.
The fainting, oh, I can't handle this. I'm just a little lady. Was prevalent in that type of era and genre of movie.
And then it's just like every decision that the woman made turned bad. Like the what was her name? The other female in it who decides to fuck up the whole damn plan by running after her boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, you literally are dooming everyone.
Was it Judy or Judy Rose?
Judy Rose or something like that. Yeah. Going after Tom, and it's like, you literally have just doomed everybody.
He's got a big wiener, She's like, all the other kids at school got micro dicks, and she's like, I gotta put a ring on this dick.
But women representation in the original I Live and Dead isn't too great.
Because in this one, she's like, we can just walk past them, and they're like, shut up, little lady.
Yes.
Us men are boarding out the window. You shut up.
Yeah, but that
And
is
she's
the
exactly
interesting-
right.
She is
Yeah.
100% correct, and no one fucking listens to her at all.
It's true.
But yeah, let's get into a few of the things that possibly why this movie is not appreciated as much. And I'm gonna go take a hot take here.
Hot take.
Now this is the '68 movie is one of my absolute favorite films.
Right.
George Romero's on my Mount Rushmore filmmakers who are inspirations to me. But do we canonize the original a little too much? I mean, are we purposely not looking at the many flaws that movie has because we all love it so very, very much, and it's such an historical, groundbreaking movie? Maybe the 1991 isn't that bad because maybe the 1968 one isn't that flawless to begin with.
Oh, interesting. I never thought about that,
That's an
John.
interesting hot take right there.
Well, I mean, too, it's hard to look at the 1990 version as its own film because it's it's greater than the sum of its parts, right? Like it's a franchise at this point, and it has like a greater place in like both pop culture and cinema canon history. I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. For me, I think that is a problem, and I think that is something that ultimately was kind of represented in how much money this movie made at the box office. Because everyone's just like, well, fuck that movie. The original's better, and it's
a perfect movie.
It's a perfect film. It's like, no, I think you have to look at it as, this had some money behind it. This did have some more budget, a much bigger budget than the original had. I mean, the original was made for what? Like couple
$20 and a ham sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, it was as low budget as it can get.
Yeah, because they had most of their own equipment from being industrial.
I think I remember
video
Russ
house.
telling us, it was like maybe 20 or 30,000.
Yeah,
around,
and a lot of that was borrowed from friends and family.
Yeah. So it was below $1 million for this film, at least in the production side of it. In this movie had was around $4 million to make it.
Yeah, $4.2 million.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's still low budget, but
by Hollywood standards.
By Hollywood standards, but I mean, it's still enough to make a decent film. And I think that some people do kind of have a little bit of a bias towards it. Like, well, does it really need to exist because the 68 one does do such a good job?
The funny thing, I watched riff tracks in Night of the Living Dead, and at first, I was a little bit pissed. And then but then I was like, a lot of the points they're making are true. Doesn't mean I don't love it as much, but you have to admit that some of your favorite things out there are not perfect. I love Jurassic Park, but there are so many things you could break down that are just flaws in the logic and the storytelling and the filmmaking. But I have this instinct. Maybe no, Jurassic Park's perfect. You suck.
Oh my god.
And a lot of people I think treat Night of the Living Dead that way.
Yeah.
It's far from a flawless movie, and I don't think anybody who made it would say it is.
Yeah.
But we deify it so much that and on that note, what if you only saw this one? What if you somehow lived in a cave and you've never seen even a clip of the 68 version? I think you would appreciate this movie more if you weren't automatically comparing it to the more beloved original.
I think you would, but I also think that you would be missing. I mean, I know that they did discuss gender politics in this, but I think you would be missing that political undertone from 1968. I think that's part of the reason why Night of the Living Dead sticks out so much, is because it is, like most good horror movies are, a paradigm for the time. Yeah. I think that is, and I was reading recently that horror movies, especially modern ones, have been really good windows into the world that we're living in. Yeah. Like movies like Get Out and what the hell's the other one? The one he did that Jordan Peele just did. Us. Yeah. Like those sorts of movies are windows into kind of our world. Yeah. And I think 1968's Night of the Living Dead is the reason why it's so well known is not only just because of the zombies, but because of those political undertones. Yeah. And that is missing a little bit from this.
A lot of science fiction as well. I always say that science fiction movies that take place in the future, it's not what we think the future will be like, it's what we think our world is like now.
Yeah.
And that's why I actually hated, even though it was a fairly decent movie, the Planet of the Apes remake, like the James Franco one that came out like 8 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
They made a bunch more since then. But because I hold Planet of the Apes so dear in my heart, and it's completely an allegory for the Cold War, classism, and fill in the blank here about religion versus science and progression. Like there's so many underlying things that Rod Serling hit in that movie that to remake it, you're completely dismissing the whole point of why that movie was made in the first place.
Right.
Because you're taking all those things out and it's all just about monkeys jumping at helicopters, and it's like, okay, well, what is the point now? And I can see how some people could say that about Night of the Living Dead. If you take out all what that movie meant, then why bother doing it again?
Right. Well, and like I said, I mean, for me to see a much stronger female character in this same film, that isn't without its worth, because that is a big change. Like you said, gender politics, becoming the new thing.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, something I kind of made as a personal note for myself. I am so into the zombie genre that I don't mind that these two movies are so similar because I just want this story 100 times over.
Such a fanboy.
Yeah.
What's interesting to note too is like, a couple of years ago, it's not really so much now, but I think when Walking Dead first came out, the pop culture just blew up over zombies.
Oh yeah, that was the thing.
And The Walking Dead is just Night of the Living Dead.
It literally is just Night of the Living Dead.
Because,
in TV form.
A bunch of people gather together inside a farmhouse to stay safe until it's no longer Night of the Living Dead. Then they go to a prison where they think that they're safe until they aren't Night of the Living Dead. And then they go to Alexandria, this community that has walls, where they think they're safe until they're not Night of the Living Dead. It's just Night of the Living Dead in series form,
Perfect.
So don't tell me that the 1999 Night of the Living Dead is too close to the original. Every movie follows this genre.
Yes.
Unless it goes too far out and it's something stupid like My Boyfriend the Zombie or whatever, the Warm Bodies. Is that what the fuck
that was that.
That fucking crap.
Oh yeah, we saw that.
My Boyfriend the Zombie.
You hated that movie, dude.
Well, yeah, it's when you start to get way too clever with the genre. Like,
My Boyfriend.
That's the problem with the zombie genre is that you have to stay close to what works.
Yeah.
But then there's the fear that you're not being too original. But if you get too original, it's not. I don't want to see this as a zombie movie, anymore. So,
I get it.
So there's no pleasing you, is what you're saying.
Just
Well,
make
Night of the Living Dead 1990. I liked it.
Just make fucking Night of the Living Dead. That's
And
literally
Walking
it.
Dead season 1 through 6.
Yeah.
1 through 5.
Yeah. But what's interesting is just like this movie exists at a time when zombies were not really popular.
Right.
Like that.
They weren't even a thing.
They weren't even
Well,
really
there was,
a thing.
You see them in Haitian voodoo stuff in movies, like they're being controlled by like.
Well,
some
I'm
voodoo
not
doll.
necessarily talking about the '68 version.
Oh, the 90
I'm
version.
talking about the
Oh,
90
gotcha.
version.
Yeah.
90 version. It's existed at a time when really the slasher was popular.
Yeah.
And was waning in popularity.
And was starting to wane,
It was
yeah.
it was a tough time in horror, really, in the early '90s. I would say.
I think that's why we got New Nightmare and Scream.
Yes.
Because we had no choice but to go meta with the genre.
Right, but I mean, Scream didn't come along until '96.
6. And New Nightmare was 95.
Right. So.
So do we want to talk about some of the difference? I think we've talked about some of the differences, but are there other differences that we want to talk about here? I think the one biggest one here is the lack of that pressure cooker atmosphere that the 68 one has.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And I think a lot of that is the over-the-top acting. It's hard to, like, take anything overly serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Todd is great.
He is really
He's
good
great
in
in
this.
this. And Patricia
Good old
Tallman.
Double T.
Patricia
great.
Tallman, who plays Barbara, is great in this.
And everybody else is okay-ish. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, it just... I don't know. And really, I guess it really does come down to Tom Tolles, because Tom Tolles really just amps it up to 11.
11.
And it's like,
Yeah,
you don't
it's a lot.
understand. Like Cooper in the original, he's a fucking asshole, racist piece of shit. Like,
Yeah.
like he's the worst kind of racist too, because he's not like your Southern hillbilly racist that kind of just is a stereotype, but he's like the everyman on the street white man in 1960s racist. Like, that's the thing. He's that subversive racist, that privileged racist. And, Tom Tolles just is ridiculous in this.
Yeah.
And you lose all that subtext with him.
Yeah, they should have got Kurt Fuller.
Oh, friend of
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
John's good friend, Kurt Fuller.
Yeah.
That's your buddy.
Yeah. My home skillet.
Yeah.
My home skillet.
We're tweet buddies.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing it lacks, is really that amped up, pressure cooker
Yeah.
of two forces. And you kind of have that in this, but it doesn't really pay out. As you said, like, they really ignore Barbara the entire time, even though she's the one who has the right idea.
Yeah,
you can't board
absolutely.
yourself up. And I think that ultimately it comes down to, with the exception of Barbara, everyone's paralyzed by the fear.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what does them in, is fear.
It's basically throughout the whole movie, like, they're so slow, we could just walk. Go get more boards. You, maybe make us some coffee. Well, I just said we should
Cream and
we
2
should-
sugars.
We should just run. No, get coffee.
Go get coffee.
Yeah.
Go get coffee.
I'm sure there's a coffee pot in there, honey. And then smack on the ass.
Yeah, but
Yikes.
I think that's it. Is you know, Barbara's the only one who's got somewhat of a clear head,
Right.
despite her being the one who literally got attacked twice.
Yeah.
You know.
After
Yeah.
the mannequin Johnny fell onto the gravestone.
Oh my god.
Come on, Tom.
I want to dive into that a little bit later,
Yeah.
but my point is that fear seems to be the paralyzing factor, and fear seems to be the thing that leads every one of these characters to their doom. Is fear to kind of adjust to the situation. You know, Barbara is able to be with a clear head, look and say, "They're so slow, we could just walk right past them." Whereas everyone wants to kind of
imprisoning
shelter
ourselves
themselves
in
in
this house,
prison.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of pulls a little bit from Dawn of the Dead, because Dawn of the Dead's whole subtext was, you know, you're turning yourself into a prisoner in a mall,
Yeah.
and your
all
world
vice
becomes a
and greed.
prison.
It's true.
You know, are you really free? Are you really alive? If you've entombed yourself in essence, what is a casket of your own making? So like
they had that by the ass.
yeah, but it's interesting to kind of see how in this movie they pull those elements from it, but they lose a lot of that pressure cooker tension, you know, between Cooper and Ben. Whereas this, it's kind of just played as, he's an asshole
With a
versus an
sweaty
asshole
over the
too.
top psychopath that just
Yes.
wants to kill Ben all the time.
Yeah.
I like that they changed the ending. You know, is that
Yes.
you didn't get the same ending, considering
Yeah.
so much else is so similar.
But I think the ending loses its punch, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
But
thing.
there's no way to like keep that punch because it's a different world than
Yeah.
it was in '68. So at least they didn't just do the same, you know. And was it Russ Schreiner was the sheriff this time around? Like, they're dead, they're all messed up. Like,
Right.
But what was nice about the ending here was that whole theme of fear being that paralyzing thing, and kind of, you know, I think Barbara says it best. She's like, "We're them and they're us."
Yeah.
Like that whole thing of, you know, the zombies are a reflection of the worst possible tendencies that we have.
Sure.
You know? That part was nice, but you know, the main change is that, you know, whereas the original Ben is the sole survivor and gets shot, which really just hits you in the gut. This one, Ben turns into a zombie, and isn't it Barbara who kills him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she opens the basement door, and it's funny
Finds
because
him
he
dead.
finds the keys for the gas pump they blew up earlier.
Yeah.
Because this guy's a fucking idiot and shot the gas pump. But yeah, and I thought that was like a funny thing of like, oh shit, there's the keys the whole time, and it was in the basement with that asshole, and nobody wanted to go down there
Because they rather have a power struggle than it clear.
Yeah, and she has to shoot him, and then Cooper comes down from the attic where they should have been the
Oh,
whole
that's
time.
right. He survived. And
Yeah,
she
he
shot
sneaks
him.
up the attic, and she shoots him, and she's like, another one for the pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also could be said that you can't be too mad at them remaking this because, as we point out, George Romero wrote the screenplay. He wanted to make this movie.
Yeah, I think having the creative team behind it really helps frame this in the correct way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like someone went rogue and just decided to do this, you know?
Right.
And so, do you guys think that, Brian, you hinted on this, but just to kind of go a little further, this is just not the right time for this movie? It wasn't the right time for a zombie movie. You know, it wasn't, you know, in the middle of the slasher. Was this just not poor timing when this movie came out?
I mean, I think it is. I think part of it is the vein of horror at this time was really steeped in slashers. It was really that was what was going to get butts in seats. Okay, and I think
Jason's got to cut up a few bitches.
No, but I mean, I'm being honest with
yeah.
you. Like that's it. I mean, the movie after I think 1990, 1991, 92. You know, that was really the end of the slasher era. You started to get some movies like, 91 you had, 92 was Nightbreed, and you also had like the last Freddy movie, you know, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare came out in 91. I mean, that was towards the end of
Nightmare
that
on Elm
era.
Street 35, Freddy gets a permit.
Yeah, so I mean,
I have to fill out what?
Freddy at the DMV.
I couldn't find the WH-49 forms.
Oh my God, can we please make a short of Freddie getting his real ID? That would be the greatest thing ever.
What do you mean? I have to take a ticket?
Do you have a passport, hon?
Oh, no, bitch. I don't have a passport. I teleport brains.
But I think the point is that it was a tough sell to put a zombie movie.
We just lost Blade.
I'm sorry, that was so fucking amazing. I loved it.
So your name is Frederick Krueger.
I go by Freddy Krueger.
Oh my god, sorry. I'm promise I'm with you guys. Just was
know,
amazing.
I know,
Just was
but
amazing.
Broderick Augustus Krueger.
Don't use my middle name. I hate it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
by the Dream Warrior.
anyway.
So anyway, I think it was a tough sell to do a zombie movie in 1990 when the atmosphere for horror really was not there. And then you're pissing off the horror community, and then on top of that, you're going to remake a beloved classic like Night of the Living Dead. I think it was just a tough sell.
Sure.
I think it's worth taking a look at, though. I think it's absolutely worth now taking a look at.
I mean, especially if you haven't checked it out yet and you have seen the original a couple of times, like I think it's a really interesting study.
I mean,
absolutely.
A lot of this movie is missing thoughtfulness, and like most of this movie is hammering. It's just boarding up windows, and the zombies break the boards, and they got to hammer them again.
I was like, what does he mean?
But the 1968 one is the same damn
true.
thing.
I don't know. I think it's a little better paced than this one.
Well, I mean, come on. You can
That's
look at
fair.
the 68 one, and then they literally have a section of time where it is nothing but them hammering fucking boards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is very much pulling from the same thing.
Well, and if you ask Savini, like, he clashed with the producers and was not able to make the movie he really wanted.
Yeah, like 40% of the movie is like not what he wanted or something. I was reading about that.
That's interesting to know, and I want to bring, and I'm glad you brought this up. So, I don't think you guys knew this, but recently, another Pittsburgh filmmaker, Mike Watt, and his company Happy Cloud Media, partnered with Savini to put together a storyboard book of the 1990
Ooh,
Night of
a
the Living
storyboard
Dead.
book.
Yeah, it's a storyboard book.
Storyboards are the drawings that you do to decide where you're going to put your camera and where you're going to stage actors.
So the important thing is that
Yes.
Savini was able to, visually showcase the storyboards that he had made for this film that got cut, because obviously he clashed and they weren't able to make those shots in those scenes. So they put together this book, and it has literally the version that he wanted to make. So it's interesting to see that because you can kind of get a little bit of a picture of what was inside of his head that did clash and did have issues. So I definitely suggest checking this out. We'll put a link to this in the show notes to buy it. Yeah.
Complete side note, I don't believe in storyboarding.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I don't think storyboarding is
Are
necessary.
you fucking kidding me? We're gonna have a fight right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a fight right now.
Why? Okay. Why do you think it's not necessary?
For if you need any kind of special effects compositing or fighting, for that kind of thing, then yes, I think it's necessary. But I think it's just being on set. John McTiernan agrees with me, director of Die Hard.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, being on set and being able to be free with your camera and where you decide and how to do it, like, I think is, as long as you are structured in that sense, I think is much more liberating and more honest than being stuck to a rigid bunch of storyboards, that you may not even be in the space when you're creating them.
And here's where I'll disagree with you.
Okay.
I say it from my practice. I can't speak to you. And honestly, like, to be fair, every director is different. Okay. I'm not going to disagree with you and say that you're wrong. I'm going to disagree and say that as a director who is working with maybe only 10 people and trying to balance the needs of all of those 10 people, along with the shots that you need to get and making sure you've got the coverage and making sure that the actors are happy and that you've got the props and you've got all this, trying to balance all of that while at the same time trying to visualize how your scene is going to play out without having a visual blueprint of how that is going to play out. I mean, I personally have made mistakes that I wished I had a storyboard. Like when I first started making movies, I didn't do storyboarding. I did just lists. Now, I do. You know this.
Yeah, I have.
You've seen me work.
I have a shot list, but I also improv.
Right, but you've seen me work. You know what I do when I make a short film.
Yeah.
I have a shot list as well as a storyboard. I do both. And the reason I do that is because despite the fact that I draw it out, and if you look at my storyboards for any of the short films I've made, you know, they are very rough. They are not nearly as like detailed as this. And honestly, there's a time and place for this, you know. But
Brian he's looking at the storyboard from this
yeah, I'm
book
looking
we
at the
were talking about.
storyboard.
They're very detailed.
Sorry. They're very
it's
detailed.
very easy to forget we're not just talking to each other.
Yeah. But the point is I'm trying to get across is that the storyboard is not the be all end all. It is it's the equivalency of getting out what's in your head onto paper so that you have a blueprint that you can base off of. That's not to say you're going to vary stuff up. That's not to say you're going to look at it and go like, you know, I have to get this shot. I mean, you saw how when we were working on The Autumn People, like there was a series when we were in the woods, and well, not in the woods, but we were in the cornfield, and you know, I wanted to have it where Lane got attacked, and I wanted to have a shot where, you know, we had the camera up from Lane's perspective, and you see the Autumn People kind of come in.
Right.
You know, I wanted to get that shot, and it was boarded, you know, that I had that shot. But while we were going through the process of executing that scene, I looked at my storyboard, and I'm like, you know what? This really doesn't work that well, despite the fact that I boarded it. So I had that foundation that I could start from. But of course, while I'm shooting, I'm going to be like, you know what? This isn't going to work. It might be better if I just pan up into the sky. And that ultimately was a better ending than just having that shot of, I boarded it, of hands coming in.
Right.
Because, of course, I cut then to, you know, stock footage of, you know, the moon being blood red.
Right.
And revealing it. And it was much more satisfying, in my opinion, than having that whole jump in thing. So, I mean, I get where John McTiernan's coming from, and I get where you're coming from, that it's
a John
free.
thing.
It's a John thing.
John thing. I'm with you, Brian. I have to have a plan, but my only hope is that someone else does the storyboards because I fucking hate drawing.
But here's the thing: you don't have to. And like if you look at Sam Raimi's boards from the first Evil Dead, he like literally shows it. And he's like, "Yeah, this is literally a stick figure."
Yeah.
And this blob here is Bruce, and this blob here is
This figure has a nice chin.
Yeah, but this blob here is Bruce, and this blob here is the action. So I don't think you have to have anything crazy. But I think there's something to be said for getting out what's in your head on paper, because there's just so much else that you as a director have to be responsible for.
Well,
so
especially with your DP, like I have to have a director of photography who is in my mindset, because like it's not, and like you don't have boards, you only have a shot sheet, you know, and you want to like just change things up on the fly. Like some director of photographers would be like, "Fuck, I can't work like this."
Oh yeah,
you know?
Well,
agreed.
You see me when I work with Tim. I trust his eye because I look at it as I know director of photography stuff, but it's not my strong suit. I can do it, but it's not what I love. It's not what I mean. I love directing. I love looking at the scene, saying, "How does this fit?" Whereas Tim, he knows the camera backwards and front. He can look at what I draw and say, "Here's how we can execute it."
Yeah.
That it makes it a beautiful scene. So having that director of photography relationship absolutely helps. And if you're not boarding, having that is paramount. But I think that you have to have some sort of grounding. So whether you do it with a shot list, if you want that works for you, great. For me, I have to have both because I've tried doing it without boarding, and it's a shit show for me. And that's just my directing style.
I'd rather be in the moment and be like, hey, let's shoot in the doorway, actually. Let's see what that looks like.
Right.
And it will, and just to, and you got to make sure the crew is on board with that kind of stuff. And this is also the privilege of shooting on digital media. That you just download and then empty. It's not, you have to storyboard if you're shooting on film.
Yeah.
Because you can't fucking waste that. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, we went off a little
Well, I
tangent
know
there.
I went off the tangent. But, I mean, that happens.
Our audience is probably like, I thought this was about Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
We got off.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So yeah, basically this movie is pretty much a shot-for-shot remake
With some changes.
Yeah. The one big one is just the quality of the special effects makeup was upped.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
You know, to a level that's gross, but not so gross that you're just like, ew, that's sticky.
But even though Tom himself didn't do it, he's going to bring in people that
Oh,
are going to
yeah.
represent him
Yeah,
correctly.
absolutely.
Because if you're the makeup guy, you can't have shitty makeup in your movie. Even if you could blame it on other people, you gotta.
But what was nice about this was that they looked at realistic situations for makeup.
Yeah.
You know, like they literally did look at, okay, like my biggest one was the corpse zombie who kind of is like walking up and he looks like a normal person who's in a suit, and then you look behind him and you see that the suit's all cut up because that's what they do for real. And at funeral homes is they kind of,
That's a great shot.
it's a
Yeah,
great
it is.
shot because like you're like, oh, that's just a normal guy, and then he's slowly walking on his you know
Pant leg. Yeah.
and it's revealed
Yeah.
that he's been cut open.
It's a zombie of Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, seriously.
Ew, John.
Ew.
No, I'm just kidding. Barbara's of age, so he wouldn't be coming after her.
Gross.
Yikes.
Maybe the little girl in the basement. She is catatonic.
You took it so far, and it hurts me.
But I mean, like, there's those sorts of things, those nice little moments where it's like, this is someone who actually paid attention to anatomy to try to, you know, replicate what decaying, you know, corpse would look like. I mean, there's the one zombie that has his head like partially like punched in.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like head, the whole eyes and nose are kind of like bunched in together. So really some great special effects makeup.
And this might actually be more of an inspiration on Nicotero. You know, I know he worked with Romero as well, but might be more of an inspiration for The Walking Dead than even the original.
Oh yeah,
Night of
yeah,
the Living Dead
absolutely.
was.
Now, of course, you know the Walking Dead we have now, you know, that has the advent of digital technology, and
Right.
you can see that some of these makeups, like the one corpse that jumps out initially, you know, one of the problems with special effects makeup is it's an additive process. So the person, if you're in like a full bodysuit and you're trying to be like emaciated, you're not going to get it. You're going to look bigger and bulkier.
Right.
And that's the one caveat with these special effects makeup processes, that, especially for the all over zombies, they look bulkier than they should be.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the nature
Right.
of it.
A
you know?
very
Right.
fat, malnourished person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I know that this film was never intended to go into public domain, but we kind of have it in that sense where
Yeah.
you get a lot of fan films. And I don't mean this in a patronizing way, but I think this is like the most expensive and most well done fan film of Night of the Living Dead
Yeah.
ever made.
That's
you know?
amazing.
And the thing too about it is that you know, it does have some problems. Like we mentioned, you know, story wise, there's some problems with it, but like there are some effects in there that are cringeworthy, like the Bill Moseley dummy that gets smashed.
Yeah, so
that's,
we
that's
mentioned
one
this
of the
earlier.
worst fucking effect I've ever seen in a movie of this caliber.
So what Brian is mentioning, like in both versions, you know, Johnny and Barbara are going to put some flowers on their mom's grave, you know, and they do the whole they're coming to get you, Barbara, you know, situation. So both films have the same kind of thing where Johnny gets attacked and is killed.
Yeah.
In this one, he is pushed down to the ground, and the way the effect is supposed to be, his head smashes on a tombstone, but they clearly got a rubber dummy version of him, I guess.
And the thing is, it's like,
And when it hits, it's so clearly
It doesn't
not a real
work.
person.
and here's the problem. Here's the issue here. That's a fault, not of the effects department. I'm not going to blame the effects department. You know why?
Okay.
Because I'm going to blame the cinematographer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
that's fair.
there is a way you could have done that shot that would have been better.
Well, even Dawn of the Dead, like the shot where they blow the head off,
Yeah.
like they cut so quickly, you just see the shotgun blast and the head explode. If you do that frame by frame, it is so clearly a fake head, but they cut it in a way that you
Yeah.
don't see the fake head, you just see the explosion.
But
You
the
know,
problem
so they
is
could cut
like,
it better.
here's the thing. If you took that and did similar to what was in the original, which the original is the camera's pointed up, it's pointing down, so it's a downward angle shot, and you're seeing, you know, Russ Streiner's head get hit against that tombstone. But it's done in a way that, you know, it is kind of softly hitting it. Like I imagine it's a real tombstone that they're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah.
Hey, Russ, can you just bang your head off of it?
But
all right, George.
but the thing is it's the angle is such a way that, you know, you can tell that they're kind of cheating it. you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, too, here, is that if you've got that dummy, why not just do a downward angle shot that's maybe pushed in a little bit, and you have the dummy really smash against that rock? Like, that's my thing, is that it's not the fact they used a dummy, it's the fact that the cinematographer really didn't think about that. They wanted to show his face, and I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do.
You know what I think that was the problem, Brian?
Huh.
I think they were too married to their storyboards. I think they should have improvised some different angles. Yeah.
No, I think the problem is they did improvise the different angle, and someone who was editing it was like, "Oh yeah, no one's gonna notice that that's a dummy." That's like when Sam Raimi did Army of Darkness, and was like, "Yeah, you know what? I think I want to put the Deadites that have clearly are wearing masks with some sort of mesh eyes in the front."
Look,
clearly,
Sam is far from a perfect filmmaker.
I know that, but I'm just saying,
Listen.
you've got the rod puppet Deadite that's clearly designed to be in the front, and you're going to put that side by side with a guy in a mask. That it's clearly a guy in a mask.
groovy, baby.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some issues with that. The Uncle Cleek is it.
With
The
big
big
fat dude.
Yeah. Like
that she's hitting with a fire poker.
She's hitting with a fire poker, and it's clearly a rubber dummy.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is bad. You can't do that. So I think it's.
I think those things are kind of almost charming though when you watch them. Like, you know, it's not perfect or imperfect with the movies now where you see CGI and it's so shitty that it takes you out of it. There's something charming about doing things practically, even if you kind of.
Oh
fail
yeah,
a
don't get me wrong. I'm saying
It's always my preference.
I love the practical, but I'm just saying, like, maybe instead of 3 hits and holding on that dummy for 3 hits,
Yeah.
maybe we just do 1.
Yeah.
Fair.
Maybe we just do 1 hit and he's done.
Roll of threes, Brian. Roll of threes.
I know, like maybe just do 1 hit with the dummy instead of 3. But yeah, I mean the effects are good with the exception of those sorts of things. I'm trying to think of what else.
In terms of like crappy effects.
No, but just in general, like with this movie, what else were we not really touched on?
I think
I
we've
feel like
hit
we've covered
quite
a lot,
bit of
guys.
it. Yeah.
I mean, this it's a movie that it's not bad, but it's not great.
Well, shall we go into the wrap up here, because like I don't.
Yeah.
Because Brian, I'm going to actually follow what you said there, and I don't mean to like take the option out here, but I don't think this film is really that awful. But I don't think it's really that great either. I think it's just a
Fine.
movie. And I think last time we did this, I think I said this with Ghostbusters too. I can't remember which one we did. But yeah, no, it's not as awful as everybody says it is, but it's not great either.
Yeah.
So I will say no,
Right.
it's not really that awful, but I'm not giving it a ringing endorsement either, even though it's a guilty pleasure of mine.
I enjoy it. You know, I mean, like I said, I think that seeing something that's a ton more feminist is really satisfying, you know, that has like a stronger character that I can relate to. You know, I think that they were able to do some it's interesting to see comparisons shot for shot, you know, with color versus, you know, black and white, you know, and the difference in cameras and whatnot. I think all that stuff's very interesting. And I think that this movie is more of an exercise in interesting academia almost. Like I feel almost like it's like a scholarly experience to kind of like compare it to the original and have conversations like we've just had. You know, I think that that's its greatest strength. I mean, yeah, like 10 out of 10 if it's on cable, like I'm leaving it on.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think the same, just echoing the same thing you guys are saying. I think this movie played it safe, and I think that's why a lot of the stuff that Savini had was cut out. I think it did try to play it safe. It tried to stick to the framework of the original.
This is the original Force Awakens.
Yeah, but I'm being honest with you. I think that the reason why it's kind of vanilla, and that's really what we're talking about. Like it's a okay movie. It's not bad. It's not great either. It's just a movie. I think the reason why that is maybe because of some of these things that Savini wanted to do but was unable to do. So I think it's worth thinking about, you know, what would have been the difference? Would Savini's additional, 60% that he wanted to do, what would have that done to this movie Would it have made it worse? Would it have made it better? Would it have made it more memorable?
I think it would have made it both. I bet there were certain things with the story that could have helped, but I also think he would have just bogged it down with way too many like practical squib effects.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, I don't know, and that maybe that reading this book, from him, that kind of details the stuff they want to do. Maybe that gives us insight into, would it have been a good idea to put some of that stuff in, or would it have been a bad idea? Because I mean, that's I think the problem is this does feel kind of meandering. But I mean, I like it. I like Tony Todd.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
You
to
love
see.
Tom Savini and Roger Ebert.
John.
Tom Savini. Here's the thing with
So
Tom
inflammatory.
Savini. Here's the thing with Tom Savini. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt still, because one, I'd love to have a conversation with him on this podcast. I'd ask him, "What do
Tommy.
what is your why is there kind of a thing with people you meet at conventions and say that you have a bad experience with you?" Like I would want to ask him that, and I would say,
We have to let him know ahead of time. He can't barrage him with that.
But my point is, it's like, I have met people who said he's a really nice guy, and then I've also a personal experience where he was not a nice guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, which one are we getting?
Yeah.
And why is that? And because I do think that he is a luminary in the horror genre. And there is something to be said for that. So I'm kind of open to it, Tom. If you listen to this podcast, you want to come and talk to us, come and talk to us.
Tom, Bubby, open door. Open
The
door.
door is open. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you no.
Even including the back door.
But I mean, there's something to be said for this film. It's not really that awful,
So we all agree it's not really that awful, but are we also give it a second shot?
Maybe.
Or are we just saying that it's not really that awful and leave it?
I would say include it in your rotation of zombie films.
Yeah.
That is what I would say.
And for
I'd say
this
that's
time of
true.
year, as we are beginning our spooky season.
If you had, here's the thing: if you're planning out, let's say you're doing a zombie night, in your house, and you're going to rotate the original, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day, you can skip the remake to Dawn of the Dead and use this movie in there instead.
Agreed.
Yeah, fuck Zack Snyder and his fake emotional
That's what I'm
things.
saying.
This is how humans feel things.
No, they don't.
I'm going to color grade the shit out of this because I'm a music video director and that's all I care about.
And that color grading looks like garbage.
Yeah.
So, good talk.
Yeah, good,
Solid
good
episode.
discussion.
So, John, where can they find you at on the Twitter machine?
The Unreal J Wolves.
Lane?
LA_Croft.
You can find me at Brian Cotton. You can also run the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or question you want to throw away, you want to talk to us about your experience with The Living Dead, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, and we will see you next time.
You're in charge down there, but I'm in charge up here, Lena.